Today we send over 1 million emails on a monthly basis, and we generate 900 demos in total every single month. When I had a sales team of 50 that was producing about 300 demos about 3 to 4 years ago, today my sales team of 6 produces 900. There are the A players and the B players and the C players. It kills the C players in full. A players definitely remain and typically would outperform AI. It would augment, I would say, the B players a lot more. Sondors, I'm the Mr. Bacon, essentially, the CEO of Salesforce. We help companies scale through cold email and LinkedIn, whether you're using humans or AI agents. And yeah, that's what we do.
Amazing, man. And like I mentioned, it's been a couple of years since you and I had a chat, and your podcast has been actually one of the most viewed on the channel, and there's a reason for that, because you guys used to send, at least back then, insane amount of cold emails back at the time, and like, how has that changed? What does that look like today?
So today we generate about 900 demos in total every single month.
Can you repeat that?
900 demos. Typically that puts us in the top 1% bracket of all companies in the world in terms of pipeline being built. Today we send over 1 million emails on a monthly basis, but apart from the sending naturally emails, we also do other things. We also send LinkedIn messages across like 60 LinkedIn profiles. We do thousands of dials also on a weekly basis. But apart from that being in the outbound motion, we also do a lot of stuff on inbound, so programmatic SEO, YouTube, a lot of that is also programmatic, ads running, LinkedIn, like a lot of different things. And so we always say more is more, so we just keep on adding more and more layers on top of it, and that's how we scale.
Very nice. And I'm curious, how does AI play into all of that? So how has AI changed the way you operate your day-to-day business?
Good question. So we have this sort of framework, I would say. So when we have a problem, and it doesn't matter, let's say it's a pipeline problem or any other problem, we typically look at that AI is the first solution to our problem, and we typically look at that an AI agent, which is an off-the-shelf solution, should be a solution to my problem. So for example, I wanted to do voice agentic AI, as in I wanted to make sure that when leads sign up and they didn't buy our stuff within 24 hours and then book a demo, then the voice AI agent would sort of reach out. But I don't offer that, all right? So what do? Is I would search for an off-the-shelf solution. So for example, we installed one literally a couple of weeks ago and then started to print demos for us on inbound. So that's like solution one to the problem. If that doesn't work or that doesn't exist in the market, then we will look at building N8N workflows. So today we have 400 plus N8N workflows in total that we leverage to build like custom workflows. So an example of that would be, let's say a lead signs up on inbound and then we would fire off a WhatsApp message. And so that is powered, for example, by N8N. And the reason why this is powerful is because a WhatsApp message produces a 20x reply rate versus an email on inbound. So if that doesn't exist, as in we cannot build it via N8N, then we're looking for an agency, because an agency is something that you can plug in and you can see value very quickly. So we have a multitude of agencies running, like 3 agencies on SEO, 1 agency even on outbound, for example, and a bunch of other agencies. So we have about 10 agencies that runs together with our 50 employees and the 10 plus AI agents, and that's how we look at agency. So if that does not exist, as in there's no good agency to solve the problem for us, then we are looking to then hire humans. So that's why we say agent first and human last when it comes to solving our problems as a business.
Very good. So does that mean, would you say that AI is going to kill sales teams in the future?
No, so I would say there are the A players and the B players and the C players. It kills the C players in full. A players definitely remain and typically would outperform AI or anything that happens in the AI front. And then it would augment, I would say, the B players a lot more. So augmentation is definitely the answer, as in I believe that the whole economy, and it doesn't matter in sales, finance, or any other spaces, we are going towards a direction where humans will need to learn how to work with AI agents, let's say in a single software or system, and that drives more output, and then that drives down the necessity to hire more humans. So you'll just see leaner and meaner teams with superior output levels. So an example of that is, so when I had a sales team of 50 that was producing about 300 demos about 3 to 4 years ago in my former company as a VP sales, today my sales team of 6 produces 900. So yeah.
Understood. And those are very good points. I was hoping you were going to actually talk about those. And so, further from that, you guys have 900 sales calls on a monthly basis. That's very hard to imagine and comprehend, but a very good thing to have. So with all of that experience, what are some of the things that people don't ask in sales calls as salespeople, but they should?
Is there, I think, when you do let's say a demo, I think some of the things you can definitely ask. One is very simple. Based on everything that you have heard, what's your likelihood from 1 to 10 to go ahead with this solution? So you have some sort of score. And if the score is like 8, 9, 10, you feel very good that they're highly likely to go ahead, right? So that's one thing. This is more to understand what is the probability of this opportunity closing, all right, being closed won. And if it's a 5, you're trying to figure out how you can get it to 8, 9, and 10, right? So to help the prospect. The other tip that I have here is to ask for their mobile number, because if you're going to ask for their mobile number, or more actually a WhatsApp number, then guess what happens when the AE has the prospect in their WhatsApp? Then again, the probability of closing a deal massively goes up. So these are maybe a couple of tips that I would love to give, to top maybe the B players that want to become A players, because A players would do this naturally already, whereas the B players typically don't have this sort of thinking of how do you actually close people, faster than I'm doing it right now. Because what typically happens is an AE just does a demo, sends a follow-up, and then hopes for the best. But then the other thing that I think you can implement as a company, right? Let's say you run multiple AEs, I have multiple AEs right now, is to by default make it mandatory to have a follow-up call with every prospect. So imagine you did the demo, you said I'm going to follow up, and let's just schedule a follow-up call immediately, something you do at the end of the call, say for the next week. And is that okay? And even if it doesn't happen, it's totally fine, but you're just scheduling that in. So maybe these 3 things are things that can move the needle massively on the close won rate.
And one of the last questions, so what has been one of your worst investments when it comes to sales that you wish you hadn't made?
I think one of the maybe example, there's plenty, but one because I always say in order to win a test, you need to run 10 winnable tests. Sorry, you need to run 10 tests in order to win 1 test, right? So to have one, you have to have more essentially winnable tests. You need to run many tests, right? So that means we have a lot of failed tests, and one of them, for example, is going into Japan. So what we did is we looked at the map, right? At the map of where is a lot of SaaS spend, right? So where do companies spend a lot of money on SaaS? And then you can see that Japan, for example, is top 10 when it comes to SaaS spend. And we were thinking to ourselves, damn, there's no competition in Japan. Why don't we just go into Japan and just roll in, and just scoop up the whole market? But I think one of the things that we didn't realize is the culture is very different in Japan. They don't actually send out many cold emails, and majority of the business that's being made is in trade shows. So it was quite a big of a flop, because especially we spent a lot of resources. We translated the website in Japanese, the software is still in Japanese, then we were searching for the head of Japan, we did many different things. So there's a lot of wasted resources that didn't pan out, but this would be just one of the 10 tests that we would do, that we would sort of bet on, and it was one of our big bets last year that just didn't pan out. But there's a bunch of also tiny, I would say, tests as well that just didn't work out. But you should not be afraid to fail, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, this is a really horrible thing that you did. And I was like, but that's normal to do a lot of horrible things. That seems horrible, but then the little amount of the great things that you did are super scalable, right? Because when we're running at SaaS, it has to be super scalable, that we can scale up 100x or 1000x, and that's actually how companies massively scale.
Very good. And so what has, on the opposite side, what has been one of the best tests that you've ever done, and how has it kind of played out for you?
Good question. I would say one of the best things, I'm going to take something the more sort of mainstream. So one of the best tests is actually scaling up content, SEO content, just going to take something very simple. And that is a very specific type of content that we're doing, which is what's called programmatic SEO, and specifically doing comparison of our, say, solution versus, say, competitor solution. But it's not just doing a few comparisons. We actually have a full-time employee that has been building a few comparisons, trying to figure out how do they perform. And then we started to see more signups, because these are bottom of the funnel articles. We started to see more calls through a tool called Captivate, where you essentially can call us literally on the website, or we will call you. Actually, we do a thing called auto dials on these comparison pages. So if you scroll through 50% of the comparison page, we'll call you on the site. So then we saw this humongous opportunity to do not just 10 comparison pages, but to do 1,000. So we have now one guy who has Claude, and he just ships comparison pages every single day. So this could be us versus, say, Outreach or some other tool. This could be a competitor X versus competitor Y versus Salesforce, so like what's called a trio comparison article. And you just print those hundreds of those every single month. And then guess what? Somebody will search this versus that. Then it also goes into ChatGPT or Claude, so the LLM traffic. And that's how you get a ton of leads that are high intent leads from these thousands of articles onto your site. And that's also what supercharges then the pipeline and the number of demos that we generate.
Very good. Okay, and in regards to Salesforce and everything that you guys are doing right now, what is the, let's say, 2026 number one goal that you want to achieve by the end of the year?
So there's always a revenue goal naturally, right? So so we're scaling that just through just making more money ultimately, right? So that's one. But then we have another goal, which is every year, which is to ship 2 new products. So today we have 7 products, and we release about 2 products per year. So this year we still haven't released 2 products. I'm not going to say what it is, but these are products that essentially massively, again, improve pipeline results. And so we ship 2 more products this year, and then we're also hoping for a major expansion in the US. We're going to have boots in the ground in the US because right now we're only based in Europe. I think the most that we go in the West is like Dominican Republic, Brazil, but we literally have nobody in the US, even though like 70% of the revenue is in the US. So we're looking to go massively up market, expanding US mid-market enterprise, and giving some hard time to the legacy providers in the space. And that's the plan really for the latest year.
That's amazing, man. You've done some incredible things, and I've been watching you guys grow for the last couple of years since you started, and it's just amazing to see how big you guys have grown. It's a pleasure to see you again, to chat with you. So I appreciate you for taking the time, man.